Hey, you're listening to episode 41 of the TA Pedals podcast. I'm Tristan.
And I'm Stephon.
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
You kind of sounded like a vampire there at the beginning.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's actually a good segue into what we need to talk about briefly.
Oh, like the vampire squid fuzz?
Yeah, just like the vampire squid fuzz. So, do you want to tell them or you want me to tell them? I don't care.
How about we do like a back and forth thing?
Sure, let's go.
So, vampire squid fuzz. We trying to get rid of it so we can start working on new stuff. Your turn.
So, what Stephon means is we are going through a transitional period in our business and we're trying to establish new business protocols because we are officially recognized by the United States government and the IRS as a legitimate business now. And we are, but in order to establish that new protocol, we are going through what we're calling a soft reset. And so we are trying to liquidate some of our old product, and the vampire squid is actually the last old product that we have left, which is it's crazy. We're gonna have 6 of those, and we are selling them for $75. And yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good for you guys if you've been waiting for a chance to get a discounted squid. Now's the time, because these are the last version 1 squids we're gonna have.
Yeah. And they sound awesome, and they're going to be a cool, unique feature on your pedal board.
That's true.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you want to pick one up, it would help us. It would help us liquidate what we have left, and that's all I have to say about that. Get a discounted pedal. That's never a bad thing.
Yeah, and it sounds amazing. I was just playing with it, the other day, and it like I always like I favor the shark, but anytime I go back to the vampire squid, I'm like, man, why don't I play with this more? It's so good.
It is. It really is. It's been my favorite since the very beginning, and hint, hint. It's not going away for good. It's just it's getting an update, and we're working on that. So
yeah, pretty cool update.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, to be honest.
So here's a segue from the vampire squid fuzz. What about some alien stuff?
Yeah, we love aliens.
Look at that alien inside your head.
Yeah. So it's no secret, I don't think, at this point, that like I'm pretty into talking about like technology and aliens and how all of that intertwines with religion and philosophy. And with all the stuff that's been going on around the world, the increase of, UFO sightings and these extraordinary claims that people are coming forward with, it's pretty exciting to me. And it makes me think a little bit, because what we've seen in movies, since aliens became mainstream, it's kind of all coming into the realm of possibility. It's not so far-fetched anymore. And to me, that's really exciting.
It's like sci-fi is starting to become sci-fact.
Yeah.
I'm going to trademark.
That's kind of how it's always been. Yeah, that is a good phrase. We should trademark that.
I'm going to trademark that.
But that's kind of how it's always been. People have predicted the future, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. Just like on, on Star Trek, it used to be wild that they had these handheld devices that they could talk to each other on. And
Yeah.
now we have not only that capability, but it's like practically supercomputers in our pockets. Um,
Yeah.
access to all the information that's ever existed, pretty much.
I mean, the only thing that we're missing from Star Trek is other uh planets and the ability to be able to travel to them.
Yeah, exactly. And we're working on that too. Uh,
Yeah.
things have just. I've always said that, like, people our age really live in a very special time because we grew up, when we were young, probably up till the time we were 7. No one really had internet or computers in their house. And I
Yeah.
remember TVs were, massive. Like the screens were like 14 inches or something, but the TV weighed like 200 pounds. Had the giant, things on the back of them where all the electronics were and stuff. I mean, it's just such a different world. And then, we get to be our age and there's, wireless internet in like every home. People are integrating with technology. We have cell phones and there's computers in our cars, and you can talk to your device and have it complete tasks for you. If you have smart home devices, you can control things in your home like your oven or your thermostat by talking to your phone. It's just wild.
It is wild. So I actually grew up with a computer in my house, but I don't recall ever using the internet until I think I moved here to Arkansas. So like around 12 years old, that was about 2002. I don't recall ever using the internet until then. But I did grow up with a computer in the house that I used to play like Need for Speed and Spyro the Dragon on, like, back in the day. And I always make fun of like Windows 95 graphics because I grew up on Windows 98 graphics.
Oh, right.
But yeah, it was a weird time. I spent a lot of time outside. I didn't spend a lot of time inside, and when I did, um, I don't recall ever doing anything significant. Like, didn't watch TV that much. Didn't really have toys to play with. I think just spent most of my time outside.
Yeah, same here. I would get sticks and make swords out of them, and
Yeah.
had to use my imagination. And I was talking to someone the other day about the new game Starfield and
Yes.
how crazy it is to go from, when I was a kid, my first video game that I was really interested in, and to be honest, I'm still very interested in, was Pokemon. But I had a copy of Pokemon Blue, and we were talking about how crazy it is to have, as a child, played video games that were black and white. We didn't even have color screens. I mean, that's nuts. And now there's,
Wait. Wait. What?
worlds that you can explore and fly through space, and the
They had Game
graphics
Boy
are like a
Color back
movie.
then.
Huh?
They had Game Boy Color back then. Maybe you just didn't have one, but they had Game Boy Color back then.
Not. I mean, they had the Game Boy before the Game Boy Color, and that's
Yeah, I
what I
know.
had. That's when I started.
I got my Game Boy Color. I feel like I was like 8 years old, and so that would have been like 1998.
Yeah, I was playing the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, before I ever had a Game Boy Color,
Uh,
and
yeah. See,
so that's
those things are
crazy to
so
me.
cool. Did you
They
have one of
really
those?
are.
Did you have one of those big bulky ones?
Yeah, I did.
Those are
I of
actually
course
like
had the atomic purple.
those like old school Game Boys are going for quite a bit of money these days.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to convince Sydney to get me one for Christmas, and then I'm gonna mod it to have a rechargeable battery and a backlit screen, and then I'm gonna relive my childhood.
Yeah.
I
Sounds like
think,
a fun time.
yeah, I think Pokemon Blue came out in I think Green came out in Japan in '98, and Blue and Red came out in '99. Um, and those were the first games that really got me hooked. But back to the kind of the alien thing. Um, it's just crazy how quickly technology has advanced. You know, even just in our lifetime, uh, like almost everything significant that has happened with technology has happened within like the last 100 years. And before that, everyone was just living like a barbarian for like millions of years.
What?
Everyone, you know, it was like for millions of years, we didn't have anything even remotely resembling what we have today. Everything that we recognize today, it's been developed like in the last like 100 years. Airplanes, automobiles, screens, Wi-Fi, like everything. If you were to go back 100 years from now, you would be seeing like the first cars.
Yeah.
So everything before 100 years ago, everyone was just living, you know, without like anything really.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
would be a whole different world.
But it also like at the same time like you didn't want for you didn't want a lot of things. Like you just wanted, to find something interesting to do that day. Like that was the highlight of your day, is to find something interesting or something interesting to do. And nowadays it's like you have to have something going on in your life in order to be happy, whereas just living was happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a complicated topic for sure because it was just so much more simple back then. And
Yeah,
now
it's a trade-off is what it is.
it
Like
really is.
you get you get all of these cool things to play with, but now you're in a position to where you need more stimulation in order to keep going. Like it's a trade-off. Like
Well,
it
also you're being manipulated constantly by, you know, and bombarded by all these, you know, different companies and artists and whoever is trying to get your
yeah.
attention, the, you know, media. And I think that causes a lot of anxiety. It's we're I think more mentally unhealthy now than we've ever been.
Yeah.
It is definitely a trade-off. But also, here's the weird part is I think this is the most comfortable time to have ever lived before. Like
Uh
everyone has enough food to eat. Well, I mean, not everyone, but you know what I mean. More people than ever have enough food to eat and clothes to wear and air conditioning and, you know, everything that we take for granted. If you're living in a developed nation, uh,
yeah.
most people have those things. And used to, like, only very rich people had it. Even 100 years ago, it was only the rich that could afford to be comfortable. Everyone else was just miserable.
Even the rich people, I'm sure they weren't like as comfortable as like most people are today.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
because comfortability means that you're not sweating. You can lay in bed and like not feel any pain.
Yeah, it was so much more about just surviving back then.
Yeah, get up out of a chair and your back doesn't hurt.
you have medication to combat diseases.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all crazy. We definitely take a lot of that for granted. But I've actually heard. So my point in saying all of that is that the increase in technology is exponential. It seems like we're constantly pushing for the next thing, and I've heard with all the alien talk, I've heard people talk about the possibility that aliens could be just either probes like unmanned drones, or um, if they're manned, the aliens could be humans from the future who have you know discovered time travel and are traveling back for whatever reason, but they're just us from the future.
I mean, I don't know about that though, because like, uh, what reason? Like, what if they have the technology to come back to our time? Then why are they so like trying to like? There's no presentation. Like it's like they're here. What are they looking at? You know what I mean? Like what are they here to do? What are they here to see? They already should know all these things. You know what I mean?
Um, I
Like if they're here
understand
to
what you're saying
change,
to a certain
if
extent,
they're
but
here to
like,
change something, then why wouldn't they just why aren't they presenting themselves and being like, hey, this thing happened and we're trying to fix it and like like I understand that like the general public wouldn't see that, but someone's got to be in a situation where like they're getting these people from the future like and presenting this idea and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
um, I don't think that if they were coming back from the future, they would be here to necessarily change something.
What do you think then?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly, but I think that there is value in just observation if that were the case. Just like, we go to, so two examples. If you were to go to a zoo, like you already, you've seen a tiger, you've seen a lion before, you know what they look like, you've heard about them, you have general knowledge about them, but it's still different to go and see it. And then I guess my second example would be like if you were given the opportunity to go back and see a historical event that you think is interesting uh, to you, and you could observe it for yourself. Say Thomas Jefferson's speech, um, and say that was really interesting to you. You already know what the speech itself says, but you would get so much more context and information visually, and information of different sorts that you can't just get from reading what the speech says. You would be able to experience that firsthand, and I think that could be a possibility. Like, what if they are watching us develop these technologies, um, or whatever? But to be fair, I mean, to be clear, I don't think that it's us from the future. Yeah, us from the future. Um, from what I understand about the way that time travel would work, I don't really think that going back in time would be possible.
Um, I think if I honestly think that if we advance to the point of being able to generate a wormhole and like super travel through space, then I don't see any reason to not think that time travel could be a possibility. Like it doesn't like it's not that far off on principle is what I'm getting at.
Back in time is uh, it would be very difficult to do if at all possible. But traveling forward in time, I would agree that that's much more likely.
Yeah.
I think that
Uh,
eventually you could. I mean, we've even observed, time dilation just in orbits around Earth. I think that eventually, if you were to be able to harness an immense amount of energy, you could probably figure out a way to accelerate time. But I just don't without essentially like negative energy. I don't think that it would be possible to go back.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so I don't have the answers, but I kind of look at it as if you view space as a thing to where you can put a point here and a point here and bend it together to travel between those 2 points at a faster rate, then why wouldn't you consider that time is also a different type of space to where you can have 2 points and travel between those at an accelerator rate? What I mean is like in principle, it makes sense that if we were to develop technology to travel like that through space, then we could figure out a way to travel like that through time.
Uh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
The weird thing about time is that it's it's connected to space. That's why they call it time space or space time. I'm sorry, I'm stupid. That's why they call it space time because they're kind of intertwined. Um, I don't I don't know how traveling through a wormhole would affect time though. Like I wonder because I think it would be instantaneous.
Yeah, that's what I like. You can travel through space without affecting time, and alternately, you'd be able to travel through time without affecting space. So you'd be able to stay in the same spot, but you would travel through time.
Hmm. Then would you say that you were in a particular point in space and you were rewinding time or fast forward, it doesn't matter. Say that you were in that particular point like in you're on a spacecraft. Would the so as you travel through time, all the events that passed um over the course of or over the period of time that you're traveling through, all those events would still occur just at an accelerated rate. So would say that you were traveling back 100 million years, and at some point in that 100 million years, there was some sort of uh, matter. We'll just say comets or asteroids that passed through that space. Would they hit you in the face, or you see what I'm saying? Like, would
You well, so like I would like to compare it to like walking through a doorway. You know what I mean? Like if you are on one side of the doorway and you can walk to the other side of like through that doorway and to the other side of the doorway, like if like in a sense of time, like I don't like if something were to pass through that moment when you get there, then I could see like a cataclysmic event. Um, but if like let's say like you're like the doorway itself doesn't have an obstruction, you know what I'm saying? Like you're passing from one side of the doorway to the other, and regardless of what's happening through that time, like it wouldn't affect you because you're still in the threshold of the doorway during that time. And it's not until you reach the other side where that thing can affect you. And if you're at a different time of when that thing happened, then it wouldn't affect you because you're on a different time.
that
Uh,
makes sense? Actually, that makes a lot of sense because you're essentially, if you think about it, as 2 points in space, you're
yeah,
not traveling through from point A to point B. You're not traveling through that distance.
yeah,
It's like you're skipping around it.
yes,
And it would be the same with time. Like it would almost be like you
yes,
disappear and then reappear.
yes, exactly. But
That
in
okay, that
your,
makes sense.
but to you, you just be walking through a doorway. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Uh,
Interesting.
so like, yeah, it's crazy to think about, but like, it gets me excited to think about stuff like that.
Yeah, I've always heard scientists say that the way that the doors work in Monsters Inc. is actually a really good representation of how a wormhole would work.
Yeah. It's
That's like traveling through uh like 4-dimensional space time
yeah.
or whatever.
Uh, I don't know about that. I mean, but in order for us to do that, I feel like we would have to be able to access, fourth dimension. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah,
would
I
have to. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you.
so like all so like all I was gonna say is just you would have to, in order to travel at a faster rate, whether it's space or time, you would have to access the fourth dimension. You're basically like, I'm outside of this third dimension, and then I'm going back into the third dimension at this point. That's basically what you're doing. So whether or not we're able to do something like that is beyond my scope of knowledge of if we're able to do something like that. But that's essentially what we would have to be able to do in order to do those things.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Because like so when you think about dimension like cross-dimensional travel, um so let's just build up on this cuz it's kind of weird, but so like one dimension would be like a point.
Yeah.
Uh 2 dimensions would be like say you have a stick figure on a piece of paper and he can only like think of Super Mario. Like and he can only go left or right, up or down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um 3 dimensions would be, the space that we exist in now where there's up, left, or up, down, left, right, and there's also X and Y. And so it's like depth.
Yeah.
And then so four dimensions is where it gets weird because I think that they technically call the fourth dimension, I think it is time.
Yeah.
So it's like, a length of time. But the weird thing is that it's like we experience time and we exist in that time, uh, but we aren't able to freely walk through it like we do 3-dimensional space.
Yeah.
And I think a good representation of what it would look like if we could was have you seen the movie Interstellar?
Yes, that's one of my favorite examples as far as stuff like this.
Me too. Yeah, I mean because I think that they portrayed
They
it
really
correctly.
they really got it, like, as close to what we understand it to be. Like they did a really good job.
Not only did they like accurately, capture it, but they represented it in a 3-dimensional space well. Like he
Yes.
could look around just like you would look around your room right now. He could look around and see different moments of time.
Yeah.
And like that's crazy to think about. But yeah, I think they did a really good job with that. And so it's kind of weird because we exist in this strange space where we experience time, but we cannot walk through it like we would space. But that's what it would. But if you think about walking through 3 dimensions and then you add time on top of that, that's kind of how it would be. Is you would literally be able to walk through time.
Yeah,
Um,
it'd be rows and rows and rows of things happening, and being able to see every bit of those things. Like yeah, like that
yeah,
movie portrays it perfectly. Like you can,
yeah,
like, there's the room, and you can see every single moment that has ever happened in that room, and you're able to look at every single moment that has happened in that room, and you're able to interact with it, and all that stuff. Like, that's exactly how I think it would be.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they did a great job. Um, but that's kind of why if other non-human beings do exist and they're coming here from another place, I don't think that they're actually like getting in a rocket and blasting off their planet and then floating through space to get here. It just doesn't make any sense. Like that's
No.
what the Fermi paradox is all about.
No.
It's got to be interdimensional.
Yeah. I think that's the only way it would be possible. Even if you think about like the warp situation or the wormhole situation where you're able to connect 2 points in time, like same concept, I think, is to you're basically jumping out of the third dimension, jumping back into it.
Yeah, it's 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 weird.
Yeah.
But that's how I understand it as well.
Even if you like look at people like they use the paper thing as a representation
Yes.
of what a wormhole would be, or how we would be able to travel between 2 points extremely quickly. You look at a piece of paper and you fold it, you're creating another dimension. Like you're going from a flat 2-dimensional object and you're folding it and it becomes a 3-dimensional object.
Yeah, it's so what's weird to me is like when you think about that, you can also think of it kind of in terms of like if you consider gravity as part of that, you can think of it as when you're trying to force those 2 points to meet,
Yeah.
the point between them has to be compressed. And so like there's got to be some sort of energy that or mass that can bend that space-time just like you bend a piece of paper to make 2 points on either side match
Yeah.
or connect.
Yeah.
And a good example I think of the way gravity, because all gravity is an object traveling across space-time and bending that space-time because of its mass. And so a good way to think of it is like if you were to put like imagine a mattress. Okay, you have a mattress and you put a marble in the middle of the mattress and then you try to roll another marble past that marble. It's probably just gonna like roll right by it. But if you get a bowling ball and you put it in the middle of that mattress and you roll that same marble past that bowling ball, that the bowling ball is pulling the center of the mattress down, and so it's going to cause that marble that you roll past it to curve around it. And
Or
that's
go straight to it.
yeah, it's going to curve the trajectory of it because it's bending that fabric down. And that's how
Yeah.
space and time are as well. When you have enough mass, it bends the fabric of space-time, and that's why we, obviously like that's you can think of the sun as the bowling ball, and that's why the planets orbit around the sun, because if you think of, well, I'm not going to describe
Our
it again. I think I did a
our
decent job.
galaxy is the mattress, the sun is the bowling ball, and we are the marble.
Well, the mattress, the only thing you got wrong there about that description was the mattress is space-time itself,
Yeah.
not the galaxy, but space-time.
Okay.
It's the fabric of space-time. And yeah, and so any object is bending space-time a little bit. And so you would have to have an immense amount of energy to bend space-time enough to or mass, I guess. I don't know. I don't completely understand, but it seems like you could have enough mass at a particular location to pull 2 points of space closer together. But it would just have to be so dense and so heavy. It would be
Yeah.
it'd have to be massive.
Yeah,
It,
but that's the theory. That's the theory that makes sense to us.
mhm.
But what if there was a way to just like that's doing it in a way where we're using our 3-dimensional space. But what if we found a way to jump out of our 3-dimensional space momentarily in order to jump back in at a different point.
But I thought that's what we were talking about, because those 2 points meeting is what creates a wormhole, and that's what you're doing is crossing the boundary of space-time.
That's what I mean. That's what makes sense in our three-dimensional space. But that's what scientists believe that would have to happen in order for us to create a wormhole in our three-dimensional space. But what I'm saying is what if we found an alternate way to where we could just jump out of our three-dimensional space into a fourth dimensional space in order to jump back into our three-dimensional space? Can you, like, it? I'm not saying that it wouldn't take a tremendous amount of force or energy to do so, but in a different way.
I can't even, just based on my very limited understanding of physics, I can't think of any way that would be possible, though. Just like with all the constraints of what we do know, I don't know how you would create a wormhole without enormous amounts of mass and energy.
But like I said, that's the wormhole that we believe to be able to be possible in our three-dimensional space. And I'm suggesting an alternate way of looking at it, in a different way. So, like, instead of thinking about the paper bending where 2 points meet, jumping off of the paper and then jumping back onto the paper.
But I guess I don't understand what you mean, because jumping off the paper is intertwined with the paper, as far as I understand.
Yeah. So, like, okay,
you'd have to go even higher than 4 dimensions, I think, to even. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's why I like talking about stuff like this, because it's so abstract. Like, there's different, like, there's a theory out there for how it's possible, but there's no limitation on what actually could be done because it hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
What I'm suggesting is, okay, you have a piece of paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have one side in one hand, one side in the other hand, and you're folding that piece of paper to where the ends meet. All right, and then you put a hole through the two sides. That's what is suggested to be a wormhole. Okay. What if you had a piece of paper flat on the ground, and you had two sides on each, like you had one side and you had your right side? You could put your finger on one side, pick it up, and bring it over and put it on the other side. You can do that almost instantaneously. Like, there's not a lot of time involved into that. You see what I'm saying? You're jumping off of the paper and coming back to the paper on this point. That's what I'm suggesting. Finding a instead of folding the paper, you're jumping out of that space and coming back into the space at a different point.
Yeah. I hear you.
Instead of folding the paper, that's all I'm saying. Like,
yeah. I have
either
no idea
way,
how that would work.
Either way could not even be possible. One of them could be possible, or none of them could be possible. We don't know. But what I'm saying is there's always a different way of looking at things, and always a different way to suggest things until it's proven right.
Yeah. So with all the sightings of the aliens and such, what do you think is, say we apply Occam's razor, what do you think is the best explanation of what's going on?
You'll have to refresh my memory. I don't quite remember what that is.
Well, let me make sure that I have it right first. I think Occam's razor is usually the simplest explanation, is the correct one. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. So what do you think, like, the simplest, most likely explanation would be? for the increased alien sightings?
Um. So again, what's the razor thing?
That the simplest explanation is usually the correct one.
Okay. Simplest explanation. Okay. The simplest explanation for the UFO sightings is that they're not telling us the full story.
What do you think the full story is?
Don't know because they didn't tell me.
Yeah, what do you think it is though? Like if that's what I'm trying to get to is if you had to guess
Okay.
what was going on, what do you think it
All right.
is?
It's pretty obvious that our world is not in agreement about anything. Okay. So if one government was to be working on something and it's like a new age situation where they've developed this new technology, they don't want anyone to know about it. Blame it on the aliens. We don't know what that was. It must have been a UFO. You know what I mean? Like that's the simplest explanation for me.
I completely agree. That I think that most people think that that's the easiest explanation is that there's some secret government program where they've developed technologies that they don't want us to know about, and they are either they are ours or they belong to someone else, and they're trying to figure it out, and they don't want anyone to know that they don't have control over these things, and so they aren't giving us the full story. And it's any government; they're not going to give all the details. That's just
Yeah,
how it is. Um,
exactly.
but I am curious, like what's going on, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna name names or anything, but I know someone who did not believe in aliens, and then this person joined the Navy and told me that they absolutely didn't believe in aliens, but now they do because of things that they've experienced in the Navy.
Yeah.
So
But like
I mean
again,
this person's not high up or anything, like as far as I
no.
know, but it's still a little curious, you know.
Yeah, but at the same time, would that person, have that knowledge of what it actually is, or would they just be told the same thing everyone else is being told? That like oh, like that's some weird thing happening and we don't know what it is and we contacted this government, they don't know what it is. That government doesn't know what it is. But any government could be just lying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but what I'm telling you is this person is like I don't think that it's something that they were told. I think it's something that they experienced firsthand. And they were like they saw some things. And I also know this person was stationed on a boat um towards Japan. Uh,
Okay.
but I don't have any, and I'm afraid to ask this person any details because I don't know if they can talk about it. But all I know
Probably
is they
not.
said huh?
I said probably not.
Probably not. That's why I don't even want to ask. But they said that they all they said was I didn't used to believe in aliens until I joined the Navy, and now I definitely do.
Well,
So I mean, I have no idea what that even means,
it
but
could be a UFO sighting, it could be an alien body sighting. Who knows? Like who knows except for that person.
yeah, it's just weird because I never thought that I would know someone, you know, close enough to me to uh I didn't think I would ever get to know anyone who actually had an experience that changed their mind.
Yeah.
Seems kind of crazy.
It is crazy. And I think we should use that as
Go
a
ahead.
segue to say, keep your mind open. You never know what the possibilities of our universe will bring us. And on that note, I think we should sign out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that maybe this episode deserves a part 2. Maybe we can go a little deeper into some things on the next one.
I agree.
I mean, you and I feel like could talk about this for hours, so it's
Definitely.
best to split it up before we get too into it.
Yeah. So,
Well, okay. Well,
part 1 here, part 2 next. And we'll see you guys later.
bye.
Bye.